Hello everyone. So some of you might not know this, and I don't often speak about it, but I was on MasterChef. And I'm going to do a little video today to show you what you can do when you're at home and you've got nothing else to do. One of them is make videos pretending you're a MasterChef. Another one is making some cookies or some oat biscuits, as I'm going to do today, combining the two things. So what I've got with, for you here is I've got some dry ingredients. So I've got some oats, flour, baking powder, and I've combined those in here. I'm just going to sieve them. So I've got about 300 grams of oats, 300 grams of flour, and a couple of teaspoons of baking powder. And I'm just going to sieve that now into my metal bowl. Now if you're like me and you don't have any weighing scales, what you can do is try to use a little bit of maths to calculate how you would measure these things without weighing scales. Okay, video to come, maths involved in baking. Alright, so we've got our dry ingredients sieved there, and then over to my wet ingredients. So the wet ingredients, what I've got is I've got some butter. Now I did 150 grams of butter again, and I've mixed that with 100 grams of sugar. Now the sugar I'd normally put in the dry ingredients with a fine sugar, caster sugar, but I don't have any caster sugar, so I've used avocado de caña, okay, which is bigger chunks. So I've just melted that down in with the butter, and there's a bit of milk in there, about 4 tablespoons, and a couple of tablespoons of honey. If you're in England you'd use golden syrup, but in Spain they don't really, you can get it, but honey is a decent substitute. So I've just put in some honey there. And I've melted that down, okay, so I've got a nice silky, sweet, buttery mixture there, okay. And what I'm going to do to that is I'm going to just add the dry ingredients into it. Okay, I've got it on here because it's quite hot still. So I'm adding my oats and my flour and my baking powder into the wet bits, okay. So mixing the dry and the wet together. And all I'm going to try and get is I want to get a nice coating on all of the flour and the oats of the buttery wet stuff. It's actually a lot wetter than I thought it was going to be. So this is the oaty mix that's going to make our oat biscuits. Now my grandma Mary and my grandma Mary used to make me oat biscuits when I was younger, and so whenever I went round they'd have a load of oat biscuits, and I used to be a little bit naughty and I'd put a bit of butter on there as well, which was a bit naughty, but it just makes it a little bit better, even though there's already loads of butter inside it. Okay, and now you see this is quite wet, okay, so it's not something that you can roll out and cut. It's just something that you've got to put some blobs of on a baking sheet and then stick it in the oven for about 15 minutes. Come back in a second. So here we have a baking sheet. I've just stuck it down, stuck down some baking paper, baking parchment, whatever you want to call it, on top of there. Didn't stick it with glue, just stuck it with a bit of fat just so that it wasn't lifting off. And I'm just going to put this into some blobs. I mean, you can be fancy with it, but I'm just going to make some little blobs. What each of these will do is they'll melt down anyway when you put it in the oven, and it will flatten. So you need to leave a bit of space in between each of them. Okay, now I'm not too fussy, so I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to make them all perfectly the same size. I'm just going to. I've got loads of time, haven't we? Because it's a Saturday and I'm stuck at home without being able to leave. So, but still, I'm not too fussy about presentation. If you want to do it perfectly, maybe you could form them inside a little ring. It's up to you. But I'm just going to go for some blobs. Okay? Now, another blob. Another blob. Now when they bake, they will flatten out, as I said. So you do need to leave a bit of space. I'm not so sure if I've left enough space. Let's see. But I've got to get them all on anyway, haven't I? Whoops. These are going to be so good. blob. Get it all out. Now this is a nice thing that you can do with your brother or sister, or making something for your mum and dad as a nice little treat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure you've washed your hands first, but I'm going to just even these out a little bit, so that because some of them are looking a little bit bigger than the other ones, just so that we don't get some massive ones spreading out all over the place. I'm going to make an extra one just by evening these out. And then that'll do for me. Just going to put these in the oven, 10-15 minutes. Don't let them burn, there's a lot of sugar in there. And syrup, well not syrup, honey. But if they get too hot and they're left in for too long, that syrup is going to go black and it's going to go beyond caramel and burn, and we don't want that. So 10-15 minutes, 180 degrees Celsius, or a little bit less if you've got a fan oven. And we'll just keep an eye on them so they don't burn. Back in a sec. Okay, so what we've got here is a little bit of a mixture of bakes, just because I don't have a fan oven. So these ones have cooked a little bit more than these ones, but that's fine. Okay, I did flatten a couple of them out because they weren't going down. So maybe in hindsight, for you guys, just flatten them down so they're a little bit lower, not so thick. Okay, because this is what it might have looked like here, and this is just a little bit too thick for me. Okay, be careful, they're hot. Let's get a device, something to pick them up with. Yeah, so let's think which is a perfect one. This looks like a good one. That's what we're looking for. That's the sort of thickness. Now if you have a wire rack, put it on a wire rack. I don't have a wire rack, so I'm using a microwave stand. Okay. And the reason is just to let them cool down. And when they cool down, they will get firmer. So they're a little bit soft now because everything's still hot. But when they cool down, they'll firm up quite nicely. Okay, you need to make sure you've left enough space for everything. Like so. This is it, dead simple, dead quick, and hopefully a nice little oaty, reasonably healthy treat for your family. And something just to pass the time whilst we're stuck in isolation in our houses and can't do anything else. Okay, voila! Enjoy with a little bit of butter if you want, or just as they are, with a cup of tea, and hey presto, job's a good one. So let them cool down a little bit, not much, they're still pretty hot, but I can't resist the temptation. So I'm going to get a nice little cookie, look at this one, shaped like a heart, oh. And I'm going to put a little bit of butter on. Now, again, you don't need butter on this, but whoa, just a little bit better. You can see it's melting, how hot it is, so better to leave it a little bit longer if you can resist. Okay, just a nice little bit of butter. And then yeah, pretty good, just like Grandma used to make.